Hi everyone, this is Debono of the Fortune Teller Shop. How are you? Now I had a question actually on my YouTube and it's a complicated one. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to answer it. I need a lot of thought actually with this one, but I'm going to give it a try. So the question is, in your opinion about skilled readers that experience blocks when they read the cards sometimes, even lose their touch or connection to the cards. And this question is from John. Yes, I have had experiences with readers who seem to lose the connection with the cards. I myself have had readers that worked for me that this has happened to. It's never really happened to me though. I've never had a block. I've never had a block or lost connection with the cards. I haven't had that experience myself. I think what helps me a lot is being a teacher. So because I'm constantly teaching the tarot cards, I get refreshed to them every time I teach them as well. So I never lose the contact with the cards because every few months I'm actually teaching them, going over them in depth. So it keeps the fundamentals very, very much in my mind, And if I was to not teach, I might get a little bit kind of sloppy with the cards, I suppose. But because I'm constantly teaching, I'm constantly kind of holding myself to a higher level or standard. That's kind of how I describe it. The other thing I would say with myself is I've also studied other forms of divination such as astrology, Lenormand cards, and palmistry, right? So what happens with me is when I get a little bit bored or a little bit like if I'm overusing a system, like for example, if I'm doing a lot of tarot readings, sometimes I'll change it up by doing some Lenormand. So that keeps it a bit fresh for me as well. However, I did have a student who totally lost the ability to read the cards. He wasn't a typical student though. He wasn't like my typical student. When he first came to me wanting to learn the cards, I remember I said to him, you have to be very dedicated to learn the cards. And I remember I didn't believe that he was dedicated actually. And I said to him, if you want to study with me, you have to put a deposit, $100 deposit down. Now I've never ever said that to any other student ever in my career where they have to put a deposit down. But I just knew that this guy was going to back out. And I felt like I did have to teach him the cards. I felt like he should learn the cards. But what happened was he came over to my shop, wanted to learn the cards. I said, yes, I'll teach you. I said, you have to put down $100 deposit. And he was like, okay, so he did. And I said, and we were going to start one-on-one lessons the next day. So what happened was he turned up the next day and he said he didn't want to do it. And I said, I knew you were going to do that. I knew you were going to back out. I said, you're not backing out. I said, you've given me a deposit. You're not getting that back. That's a non-refundable. So he was like, oh, I don't think I want to learn after all. And I said, I think you should learn because I think the cards are going to help you a lot in your life. And I said, you will help others as well, if you stick to it. So what happened was he studied with me, but he was not a good student. He only studied, randomly, which I kind of knew. I kind of knew that's what he would do. But eventually he studied the cards, and I remember I started him off with gypsy cards. They weren't tarot. It was a deck that was similar to the Lenormand, but it wasn't Lenormand. It was a simpler version. And anyway, I started him on those, and I have them here actually. Yeah, I do. So I started him on the gypsy cards, which are very, very simple. So you have, you know, the merman, you have the ring, diamond ring, you have the golden apple, temptation, you have the violets, which is patience, the crown, which is monetary success. You have Pegasus. Pegasus is a friend, helpful friend. The heart, which is love. And the scissors, which is obviously cutting. The wheel, fortune, wheel of fortune. Medusa, self-block, self-sabotage. Okay, so I started him on these ones, and he was miraculous. Like, he would do readings that were really amazing, really impressive once he learned them. And he was very gifted as well, because he was very psychic. He had vision. He would get visions about people. It was quite miraculous. He would get names, days and dates for people as well. But he was very lazy as a student. So what happened was, after he learned, he sort of was very off again, on again with the cards. And sometimes he would do amazing readings, and sometimes he would just guess. He would be lazy, he would guess. I could tell when he was guessing. Because when I had my shop in Sydney, I had a section for students, so students could do readings. And I noticed that he wasn't disciplined. He just wasn't disciplined with the meaning. Sometimes he'd even forget the card meanings. That's how undisciplined he was. So he lost the connection with the tarot, with the cards, because I think although he was very gifted as a psychic, he was not very good at memorizing the cards and remembering the cards. And the other thing he would do as well, I think he would just guess as well. And I think the client would know that he's just guessing. So I think that was one example of someone who lost connection with the cards, because I think he just didn't have the structure. Yeah. The other thing, what happened was, after he learned the gypsy cards, then I taught him tarot. And I actually didn't want to teach him tarot because I felt like he wasn't ready for it, because he couldn't even really memorize the gypsy cards, although he was very good at them when he did. Like I remembered him doing some readings when he first learned, when he was very fresh from learning, and the cards were really clear for him. I remember when he would do a reading for clients, they would be shook. Like, he'd be so accurate with people, you know. And I was really impressed, because I thought, yeah, he's going to be a good reader if he can keep his discipline. But he just didn't keep the discipline. And then what happened was, he wanted to learn the tarot, which I said, no, you're not ready, you need another 6 months. And then he just kept kind of badgering me. He was a bit like my son. It ended up being like a father-son relationship, really. And he kept badgering me to learn the tarot. And I said, okay. I sort of caved in, because I thought, he wants to do it, so maybe his desire will help him to. But he couldn't remember the cards. It was too much for him. His memory wasn't good. So then what happened was, when he finished the tarot, he basically kind of couldn't remember the tarot, went back to gypsy cards. And then he tried psychometry for a while, where you hold people's jewelry. He did that, he was very good with that. And then that also failed him, and then he stopped doing readings altogether. So that's one example. I have a few others. I have some where they read in my shop for several years, but I think it wasn't their calling, you know. I think that there's another woman that comes to mind. She was very good with the cards. She learned with me. She learned numerology. She learned gypsy cards, numerology. What else did she learn? Numerology, and she was very good at numerology, and she did also gypsy cards. She was also very good at that. I think it was just those two. Yeah, she did those two. She did that for 2 years in my shop professionally, and then after my shop closed, she decided that was it, and she didn't want to read anymore. So, you know, sometimes people just lose and they forget, you know, or it's not their calling. Okay. The other person I can think of, without kind of exposing people, was an older reader that I knew, She was very good when I met her, and I learned a lot from her. But what happened was, I think she became very jaded. Over time, she became very jaded with people. She kind of lost her love of people. And I think then after that, she lost her gift of reading the cards. Because I remember she was kind of in a bad mood or a bad phase in her life. And she just couldn't put up with people's questions and people's life problems and things like that. And I think she totally just, the energy of the cards or the power of the cards didn't work, or she perhaps didn't bother. It was maybe more that she didn't bother with them, or she couldn't bother with people so much. So I think she lost her powers that way. So I think, in summary, I think people lose their connection to the cards, and I'll refer back to the question. Experienced readers have blocks, and the cards sometimes lose their touch or connection. So when experienced readers have blocks, it could be a combination of they're in a bad phase of their life, they might have stopped caring a little bit, or they might be exhausted by people. Okay, so they may have lost a bit of human love connection. Because having this job, you do have to be good with people. You do have to be interested in people's problems and sometimes their own attitudes or the way that they, act. You have to kind of love humanity to do this job, even when it's not always easy. So I think that's when they kind of lose it. The other thing is, I think sometimes if they're doing sort of the cards over and over and over, sometimes the cards become less impactful, like they stop reading the cards because they're so used to the Tower and they're so used to the Death card. It's like it's not so shocking. When you first read tarot, most people, well, I'll speak for myself, when I first started, I used to be terrified of the Death card or the Tower card. You hold these cards in reverence, and when you see them, you're a bit kind of impacted. But I think what happens sometimes is if you read them all day or all the time, or, for many clients, I think sometimes the card meanings can sometimes get watered down. So that's another reason I think that sometimes people lose their touch or their connection. So I think, to summarize, I think it's maybe they're in a bad state in their life. It could be that they've sort of stopped caring a bit, or they're a bit exhausted with people. And I think the other one would be that maybe because they do it for so long, the cards have lost their kind of impact and it's been watered down. So I think they're the main ones that I would say that there's a disconnect. Okay, if I think of any more, I'll make another video about it, but I think they're the main three. This is Debono of the Fortune Teller Shop, and I'll see you next time.